Your Steve Jones Show podcast is loading now. The Steve Jones Show podcast is sponsored by Purdy Insurance. Visit Purdy Insurance on Market Street in Sunbury or visit online at purdyinsurance.com. Sports talk where your voice counts. This is the Steve Jones Show on Newsradio 1070 WKOK. Now from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Today's show brought to you by Purdy Insurance, Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. Auto, home, life, business, a wide spectrum of insurance needs that we have out there, and Purdy Insurance can take care of all of them. And they have the experts to make sure that you get the best insurance to cover whatever you need to have covered and get you the best price, because they'll search and find it for you. And if there is a claim, they'll jump right in, every resource they have to make sure it is taken care of. The customer always comes first. It is Purdy Insurance, the great pros at Purdy Insurance, Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. Speaking of great pros, we're in the Sunbury Motors Studio. Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury, Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. Time now for our play-by-play call of the day, a call that Eagles fans have longed to hear.
It's a flea flicker. Back to Foles. He's going deep down the far side of the field. And it is caught! Touchdown! Torrey Smith! 41 yards!
It's about to get turned up in here.
This team that was 7-9 a year ago had their optimists hoping for a competitive season to challenge for the NFC East title. Won 13 games along the way and overcame the losses of Jason Peters, Darren Sproles, Jordan Hicks, Caleb Sturgis, Chris Maragos, and finally Carson Wentz.
Wow.
For the first time in 13 years, the Eagles are headed for the Super Bowl and a rematch with the New England Patriots in Super Bowl 52.
Merrill Reese, pack your bags. We're going to Minneapolis.
Merrill Reese and Mike Quick. What a great moment for Eagles fans to cherish. And how happy I am for Merrill Reese. He gets to call another Super Bowl. Well-deserved for one of the truly great guys, outstanding announcers, that he gets to be on that stage where he belongs. All right. Very quickly, the ratings yesterday. AFC title game between the Patriots and the Jags. Pulled a 27.3 overnight rating on CBS, down slightly, but essentially flat from last year's early window conference championship game between the Packers and the Falcons. Down 14% from the 2016 championship game in that slot between the Patriots and Broncos. That's Brady and Manning, so down 14% from that. So it's the lowest AFC Championship game rating since 2015. Now, the Eagles and the Vikings on Fox drew a 24.7 overnight rating, down 11% from last year. Last year's late game was Patriots and Steelers, down 8% from the 2016 NFC Championship game, which was Carolina and Arizona. It is the lowest. The Eagles-Vikings game is the lowest-rated NFC Championship game since 2009. But keep in mind, when the programming comes out for the week, those will be the top two rated shows for the week, too. The NFL ratings may be down, but they continue to be the most popular programs on TV. Super Bowl will have a monster rating. And by the way, the ratings we're talking about here, I believe both eclipse the Academy Awards. So that's the rating story. We're not going to go into it ad nauseum as to what's going on with the ratings. And so we've talked about that a million times. There's one other element, too. Thursday Night Football. Supposedly NBC and CBS have bid but have downgraded their bids on Thursday Night Football. Evidently, the group that has really gone all in to try and get the package of games, Fox. Fox evidently has made a big bid on Thursday Night Football. We'll see if it pans out. All right, let's talk about your Eagles. With that, we bring in Matt Leon, KYW in Philadelphia. Matt, city's going crazy, and they didn't need to have anybody out there greasing the poles yesterday because the crowd was great. Welcome. Great to have you with us.
Oh, it absolutely is. It was a special night last night, and I'm not surprised they won. I actually, if I had to choose before the game, I probably would have picked Minnesota, but I thought it was 55-45, 52-48. I thought it was going to be close. I didn't see a scenario where the Eagles would just systematically disassemble and put away that Vikings team in every facet of the game. It was incredibly impressive.
It was in every facet of the game. Let's get to Nick Foles now. I loved when they signed him in the offseason. Said it straight out. One of the better free agent signings. You need a veteran backup quarterback. But then when he became the quarterback, I said that's not enough to get to the Super Bowl. Again, that's just me being honest and replaying for everybody instead of like making something up and saying I knew Foles would do it because that's not true. Why has he been able to do it?
I think it seems to me that since about halftime of the Atlanta game, Doug Peterson has really found a comfort zone with Foles as far as what he wants to do and what he likes to do. And they have the last 6 quarters, they didn't score any. They only scored the 6 points against Atlanta in the second half, but they moved the ball very efficiently, specifically in the passing game there. And I think it is Foles playing with confidence. Foles has found his comfort zone. Peterson calling some great games that play to his strength, and it's a combination of both those. I mean, Foles, I think, and I said this when the injury to Wentz happened, Foles is one of the 5 best backup quarterbacks in the NFL. He's not Wentz, obviously, but I think he's no one. I don't think is as good as he played last night, and everybody was panicking after that Raiders game. And I told people, well, you know what he is, and that when Nick Foles is really bad, that's what he looks like. But he's probably somewhere in the middle. And they just got the A-plus Nick Foles at the absolute right time. I mean, I said to some people, Nick Foles has a 7 passing touchdown game in his NFL career, and it's pretty impressive when that's not the best performance you've ever put forward.
Exactly. And I thought Doug Peterson's play calling when they had the lead was aggressive. What did you think of that part, and how aggressive can you be when your defense is playing that well?
No, I think you feel really comfortable, with throwing it all out there. I mean, I thought the drive for me, there were a lot of places you could argue that they really broke Minnesota's spirit. But when they got the ball, I think it was 21-7, they got the ball with 29 seconds left in the first half. I'm sitting there saying I would just, take a knee here, go into the locker room. You've got the momentum. You're up multiple scores. You don't want to have some silly deflection or something that hands Minnesota 3 or even worse, 7 points that they don't deserve. And Nick and Doug Peterson did the exact opposite. He calls the same play twice in a row, which he's done a couple times with this screen to Jay Ajayi, and that got him cooking. And then he throws somehow Zach Ertz, the one guy that they're going to look for, gets wide open down the sidelines and sets up a field goal, and they steal 3 points there. Then they get the ball coming out of the locker room, and they get the touchdown on the on the flea flicker to Torrey Smith, and that was really all she wrote. But I thought that drive right before the half, it was only a field goal, but in that situation, to just keep your broomstick on the throttle and really step on Minnesota's necks, I think that really sent a message. And I mean, you have to execute as well. But there are a lot of NFL coaches and a lot of successful NFL coaches that were more than happy to take 21-7 into the locker room and not even given their offense a chance. I mean, earlier in the day, Jacksonville had 55 seconds at the end of the half, and they said, "Now we're good." And you kind of see how that mindset can tend to bleed into the rest of the game.
The emotional play of the game was the Patrick Robinson play. What kind of comeback has this been for Patrick Robinson? Because he was coming out, he was a first-round pick and a big deal, and had to rediscover himself by going to Philadelphia.
Yeah, and he did not have a good training camp, and there were a lot of people loudly wondering why the Eagles were keeping him. But once it started for real in the regular season, he's been really, really good. He helped when they lost Ronald Darby early, and they had to kind of piece the secondary together with a lot of young players. He was kind of the stabilizing force on the corner. He's come up with big plays like that. I mean, none bigger than last night. But that play, that pick six, which was helped in part by a great pass rush from Chris Long, who got just enough of Case Keenum's arm to turn that throw into a duck. And that ripped the momentum away from the Vikings and gave it to the Eagles. I think that play set the Eagles on the course. I honestly think the biggest defensive play for the Eagles was the strip sack of Keenum a little later on when I think it was 14-7.
Yep.
Where Minnesota's driving, they're inside the 20, and you get the feeling, all right, Minnesota gets points here. It's either 14-10, 14-14, and then all right, we better gear up here. This is going to be about what we thought it was. And they get the turnover there, and they turn it into points. And, there were just so many places where the Eagles made the big play, and Minnesota came up small.
When you watch the Eagles, I want to talk about defensively for a moment. Where are they a better defensive team now than they were a month ago?
Probably, I think, just cohesively. Like, they don't give up many chunk plays at all. Ronald Darby has really settled in. He missed a lot of that time with the ankle injury, and I think after he got back, he had to kind of work his way back into, football shape, but just get back into the grind and worked way back into the secondary. And I think he's at full strength now. And the pass rush is consistent. And boy, did they just seem to get home as a pass rush at the most opportune times. They don't pile up the 7, 8, 9 sacks that, sometimes you see. They might only get 1 or 2, but they are at absolutely critical times. And when they don't get there for the sack, like on the interception, they get there and force a bad throw. They had Keenum under duress throughout the night. They only maybe got him down a couple times. But, just a consistent pass rush and the secondary coming together, to answer your question, I think have been key. And, Fletcher Cox. I don't know that I've ever seen a defensive tackle, because one of the things in the NFL, defensive tackle can play good football and not get noticed just by the nature of the position. And Cox has 4 or 5 disruptive plays where it is evident from the jump how much he has disrupted what the offense is trying to do, and it's really been fun to watch.
The Patriots are interesting. I would say of the Patriots' 8 best players, they essentially played yesterday without 3 of them. Dante Hightower, Julian Edelman, had to play essentially most of the game without Rob Gronkowski. That's 3 of their top 8 players that they've been able to get here without. When you look at the initial matchup, what are a couple things that run through your mind about facing a Patriots team? It may not be the greatest Patriots team ever, but still is really good.
I think the first thing is that when you're preparing for the Patriots, you have to kind of get past the fact that it's the Patriots.
I agree with that.
Get past the aura of and believe me, the Patriots have earned this aura. You win 5 Super Bowls, you're
right.
Consistently the best team. And I don't think this will be something this Eagles team will struggle with. You can't kind of put them on a pedestal and look at them and hope for the best. And I think you've got to get past that wow factor. And I anticipate the Eagles will. And I think on offense, Brady's Brady. He's going to get his. I think, and I'm going to assume for points of this discussion that Gronkowski plays, I think you've got to figure out a way to minimize Gronkowski because he's such a matchup nightmare. And I think the Eagles have the scheme to maybe do that. I think the Eagles will be able to do things offensively. I think it's unfair to anticipate Nick Foles doing what he did last night. But they should be able to move the football. They should be able to do some things offensively. I think the odds makers have done the Eagles a great favor by making them an underdog. Yep. I think that the Eagles relish that. They are feeding off of that. And let's face it, this is found money for the Eagles. These chances don't come. I don't want to undersell, the opportunity to win a world championship. And regardless of what you think long term, they've got 20 of 22 starters locked up, and Wentz is going to be great. And I agree with all that, but you just never know. People were talking about how the Seahawks were the next American dynasty a few years ago, and that hasn't panned out like people thought. You have to take advantage of these opportunities when they present themselves. But when you think that no one anticipated this Eagles team coming, everyone wrote them off when Wentz got hurt. And now you're going into the Super Bowl against one of the great franchises in American sports history, and you're going in as I think I saw 5.5-point underdog. You're going to be loose as can be.
Sure.
You're going to go out there and let it rip. And I think at this point, you've got to figure that they've got more than a good chance of finding a way to finally win the Super Bowl and bring the Lombardi Trophy to Philadelphia.
See, the one franchise that's been able to make the Patriots blink has been the Giants. I think the best thing that ever happened to allow the Giants to do that was, remember, the year the Patriots went 18-0. The last regular season game was against the Patriots, and the Patriots were going for a 16-0. And the Giants took them to the Giants played. They didn't rest guys, anything like that. I mean, the Giants were already in the playoffs, and they played them right to the wire. They walked out of there saying, okay, I don't get it. We can play with these guys. And when they played in the Super Bowl, they played them. And then when they played them again, they already knew they could beat them. And that's the difference, is that there's certain teams out there that know they can beat them. The question is, for example, Jacksonville didn't really know they could. I mean, they scrimmaged against them, and Tennessee didn't think that. But there are a couple of franchises out there that like cast the aura aside and go, well, they don't do this, this, and this, and we do that. Philadelphia's got to approach it that way. Like, okay, they got Brady. What can we take advantage of?
Oh, yeah, no question about it. And there's not many players left. I haven't looked. The Eagles did beat the Patriots in Foxborough, Chip Kelly's last season. I don't know if you remember. Was that bizarre? The Eagles blocked a punt. They returned a punt. They didn't do anything offensively, but they had all these wild big plays when the whole house of cards with Chip Kelly was falling apart, and yet they found a way to win that game. So there are a handful of guys who have beaten the Patriots and have beaten them up in Foxborough. But no, if you're going to draw up a scenario where how do the Eagles finally win a Super Bowl and how does it finally happen, I would say going into a game with no pressure as an underdog, is really, really good. Because you look at the last couple times the Eagles went to the Super Bowl. When they went in 80, that was they beat the Cowboys in the NFC Championship game. And as you look at it in retrospect, they put so much into beating that Cowboys team, they were out of gas for the Super Bowl. Yep. And then when they played New England in Super Bowl 39, they had been at the championship game. That was the fourth straight year, and people were just petrified of losing that game again.
Right.
And when they finally won that game, there was joy in the city and joy in the organization, but there was more like, thank goodness we finally got over that hump. And I think that plays into how you approach. There is a completely different dynamic here. Yeah. This came out of nowhere this season. It kind of came out of nowhere twice, because it came out of nowhere out of training camp when they started 11-1 or whatever, and it came out of nowhere again after Wentz got hurt. Because people that maybe had bought in figured out, well, it was fun, but, maybe they'll win a playoff game, but they're not doing anything with Nick Foles. Now they're 60 minutes away from winning the Lombardi Trophy, and, maybe it takes a team like this to finally to break the streak and get Philadelphia Eagle fans the championship they so desperately wanted.
Yeah, the other two, you're absolutely right. The biggest hurdle was to clear the NFC Championship Game. And I was like, okay. Oh, what do you mean? You got to win another one? Okay, great. All right, let's go. We'll try and win another one. And this time it's like, hey, we're playing with house money.
Yeah, and the fact that they had a blowout in the championship game, you look at what happened to the Vikings, as miraculous as that play was that beat the Saints, something to be said for when you get that type of an emotional high at the end of the game, it is hard not to be flat. Coming the next way. And I know you say flat. Well, they scored a touchdown their first drive, but you really saw them deflate after that. And, I saw a great stat, and I don't remember, but it was something like the last 5 times or the 5 times in the Super Bowl area that a team has won a playoff game on a walk-off touchdown, basically like that. They've gotten their doors blown off the next week because I think it's hard to come down and stay level after an emotional high like that. You got the Eagles, they kicked Minnesota's rear end. That game was over. Fourth quarter was a victory lap, and I think that really kind of helps you reset here. And then you have the extra week. It's all set up for the Eagles, and they're going to play an outstanding franchise, but they've never been in a better position in my lifetime to win a world championship than they will be in 2 weeks.
A lot of lifetimes. It's been 1960. All right. I'm the only one that can say, it happened in my lifetime, but I was 2. All right. Hey, Matt, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
All right. Great talking to you. Take care.
All right. Matt Leon, KYW in Philadelphia. Interesting. All right, we'll come back with more in a moment on News Radio 1070 WKOK, brought to you by Purdy Insurance.
Sometimes the truth hurts. The first 2 weeks of January with sub-zero temperatures put a hurtin' on Sunbury Motors sales. Well, bundle up and save while SMC delivers the biggest discounts imaginable. Sunbury Motors Ford wants to see you in a brand new Escape or F-150. Save up to $8,000 on new Escapes starting at $20,825. Or take up to $14,500 off a new Ford F-150 starting at $25,969. Sunbury Motors Kia doesn't want you to pay a dime in interest for your new Kia. Finance a new Sorento, Sportage, Optima, or Forte for 0% for 75 months. No one has 0% for 75 months but Kia. Sunbury Motors Hyundai wants you with America's best warranty. 10 years, 100,000 miles. Plus, you can save up to $3,807 on a new Santa Fe and $3,112 on a new Hyundai Tucson. Bundle up and save at Sunbury Motors Ford, Kia, or Hyundai in the North 4th Street Auto Plaza, Sunbury, and routes 11 and 15, Hummel's Wharf.
Taking your calls at 800-795-9565. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Today's show brought to you by Purdy Insurance, Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. I don't care if it's auto, home, life, business. You name the insurance, they have an expert there that will help you find the best insurance that fits your needs at the best price. And they will search to find that price. And then if something happens to you, they're your partner. I mean, you have a great, you really need to have a great relationship with your insurance agent. Purdy Insurance, great people that work really hard on your behalf. If something happens to you, they'll go in as if it happened to them. So that's Purdy Insurance, Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. I'm in the Sunbury Motors studio. Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. All right. By the way, Ohio State basketball. I always feel like I've seen everything in Nelson. Maybe a little something comes up that's different. For example, somebody asked me yesterday, they went the last 10 minutes, they didn't score a basket. I mean, you've probably never seen that before. No, I've seen it before. I saw it 20 years ago. Penn State was playing at Bradley. I remember my broadcast position. That was slightly elevated, Peoria Civic Center at the foul line. And with Joe Crispin out there, yes, Joe Crispin and Titus Ivory and so forth, Penn State went 14 minutes without scoring a point. So I've seen it happen before. But I'll tell you something that's going to start tonight I've never seen in the conference. Ohio State is about to start a 4-game conference homestand. Huh? Now, I've seen 3 several times. I've never seen a team go on a 4-game conference homestand. Now, they're also, again, with the Madison Square Garden thing, they'll play 9 games in Columbus, 8 on the road, then the 1 neutral court game. That was Minnesota's home game at the Garden on Saturday. So they played 2 road games. Then they played Minnesota at the Garden. Well, last I checked, the Garden's a little bit closer to Ohio State than it is to Minneapolis. We got a 4-game homestand starting tonight with Nebraska. That's remarkable. Oh. I always love how I hear when, but don't worry, the Garden thing will even up. No, it won't. I have no confidence until I find out that Penn State's playing there the second time in the Garden. I mean, in the regular season, and the other team gave up the home game. That's when I'll know it even up.
Ohio State so far. Surprise to you that they're on top of the league early part of the out of the game?
Yeah, no question. Chris Holtman's done a great job. Really good coach. He has a veteran team, but he didn't have a lot of numbers with that team. So, Keita Bates-Diop coming back, and right now he'd be a guy that would absolutely be in the conversation for Conference Player of the Year.
Yeah, I'd heard Sean Morris talk about that on Big Ten Network over the weekend. Very impressed with him as well.
19, 20 points a game, 8 rebounds a game. He's shooting over 50% from the field. Free throw percentage is up. He's shooting threes much better this year. Because he missed almost all of last year with an injury. And getting him back is huge. I mean, he's always been a tough matchup for Penn State anyway. Tate, he's just one of those hardworking guys who's a lot like Josh Reeves, except Reeves is a little more mobile. But, there's always a guy on a team that has the ability to make everybody else better. Tate's always been that guy for Ohio State. He makes everybody else around him better, just like Reeves is really the one guy above all that makes everybody else on the floor better for Penn State. They just haven't had him the last 4 games. C.J. Jackson really struggled last year as an outside shooter. This year he's shooting the ball really well from the outside. It's made a big difference. Wesson in the middle's been good. Potter gives them good minutes off the bench. And getting Andrew Dockich to Andrew Dockich left Michigan. He was going to transfer to Quinnipiac, where he was going to join Isaiah Washington at Quinnipiac. And then all of a sudden the door opened at Ohio State, so he took it. And Andrew Dockich, he's been really good. Good.
Did he ever have an interest in playing for Indiana?
I don't think Indiana offered him, to be honest with you. I don't think they did. Because that's his dad's alma mater. That's Dan's alma mater.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he went to Michigan, contributed the whole thing. And then he was going to, hey, look, I want to play. He's near the end of his career. He said, I want to play. So he was going to transfer to Quinnipiac. And then also the door opened at Ohio State. He's been invaluable coming off the bench. Hasn't started a single game yet this year. Now, this is where Ohio State, once they get to postseason play, what will be an Achilles heel that could be an issue for them? And it is as follows. There really is not a natural point guard on their roster. So there's going to be a couple of tight games where you're going to need your guards to get you out of an issue here and there in a tournament game. That's where it's going to come into play, not having a natural point guard. But Chris Holtmann stepped in, inherited really good talent, because he got Keita Bates-Diop back. So that's the best recruit in the conference right there. Suddenly, a guy that was out almost all of last year is back, and he's playing at a Conference Player of the Year level. Tate's just as rock solid as it gets. Wesson got better, but that's a 1 year to second year improvement. Same thing with Micah Potter, 1 year to second year improvement. And C.J. Jackson, who's a really, really nice talent, got better. And then they still have Cam Williams, who fires from the outside. Cam Williams last year, when they were having trouble scoring, started taking too many shots, and he kind of shot them out of some games. I think there was some pressure on him to score a little bit more. This year, they got a little more balanced offense, and guess what? He's back to shooting 48% in threes, because he now is expected to contribute threes and not carry the load with threes. They're a good defensive team. Good defensive team. Their defensive points per possession is right about what Penn State's is. And Penn State's 25th in the nation in defensive points per possession. But here's the caveat. You go number inside the number. Penn State's almost, I think for the year, Penn State's .930 points per possession defensively. That's 25th in the country. But since they lost Reeves, it's almost 1.1 per possession. See, that's, there's that domino effect, the ability of, we always talk about how Saquon Barkley makes everybody around him better. All right? Trace McSorley made Saquon Barkley better. McSorley's the guy that made Barkley better. Well, same thing in basketball. Who are the guys that have the ability to make everybody else around them better? Well, for example, at Michigan, Xavier Simpson is the guy that has taken the mantle there, and he's made everybody around him better. Miles Bridges at Michigan State makes everybody else around him better. That's why when they're missing it, you can see the domino effect with each team. For Penn State, that guy's been Josh Reeves. And we've talked about that the entire time. Now, whose fault is it that he's not there? It's Josh Reeves' fault. I mean, he's the one that needs the student and student-athlete does need to take care of both being an athlete and being a student at all times, even though there are a couple circumstances here with this. But you're talking about a guy who's your fourth leading scorer. Okay. Your third leading rebounder, had been your leader in steals, in fact, led the conference in steals, third in block shots, second in assists, and second in three-point percentage at 43. So you talk about the defensive part. For example, take Vic Law. Vic Law had a good game for Northwestern on Saturday. Good game, no question. Vic Law didn't do much the first time because he was locked down by, Josh Reeves. So his defense taking out a key guy then frees up other people to do their deal in rotations. Now let's go to the offensive end. Really good passer. So it gives you a second legitimate passing option out there. And because he is a good three-point shooter, you can now put him in a spot. And, for example, the other day in the zone, you saw Northwestern, Mike Watkins only got 2 shots. Well, if Josh is out there, Mike's going to get more than 2 shots, only for a couple of reasons. Number one, of course, Josh is really good at finding Mike. But number two, you have to respect the fact that Josh Reeves, who's a 43% three-point shooter, that now puts 4 potential three-point shooting threats on the floor, which then changes the floor balance and changes the spacing. And again, back to the domino effect of what's going on here. You can talk about who the team, who's the most important player and the most valuable player. And this is not something, this 4-game stretch did not illuminate Dick or me about the importance of Josh, because we've talked about it all season long, about how important he's been. Now, it's his responsibility to take care of the other part. That's his responsibility. Now, I'm not going to get into what's going on here, but we'll find. I guess we'll find out a lot more this week. I think we will. But that's how important he is. The one guy that has the ability. Tony Carr can make some people better. Mike Watkins can make Lamar Stevens a little bit better. Lamar can make Watkins a little bit better. But the one guy that makes the other 4 guys on the floor better at both ends, because of his skill set, is Josh Reeves. And that's the part they lost, because there are times now they're playing 4-on-5 offensively. I know Jamari Wheeler can hit outside shots, but look, if I'm coaching against them, I'm doing what other teams are doing. I'm saying, show me. Hit one. Until then, I'm going to double Watkins with your guy. Now, Wheeler gives you a lot of energy defensively. There's no doubt that Jamari does do that. He's really good when it comes to that. But there's also can only play in a certain amount of time out there, 2 minutes wise. You'd like to have it where he's coming off the bench and giving you instant defense. So it's just kind of wrecked the whole rotation. Wrecked the whole rotation at a time where you're looking around saying they're right there to the doorstep, because the game they played at home against Northwestern, that was one of those nights where I walked out of there and said, okay, here we go. 48 hours later, what do you mean he's not going to make the trip to Indiana? But that's what he brings. Like, it's one guy. You can replace one guy. Nah, it's really tough to replace the guy that makes the other people better. You see that in football. You see that in basketball. Any legit team sport. For example, hockey. Let's take Duncan Keith. Duncan Keith makes everybody else around it better. I think Jonathan Taves, let's keep it with the Blackhawks, he makes everybody around it better. Patrick Kane's really good, but he's a better player because he's with Jonathan Taves. Crosby makes everybody around him better because he's that kind of player. He makes other people around him better, where it's not just him getting his, he just makes people around him better. So that's a team sport concept. LeBron James, we can talk all the LeBron stuff, all the publicity. I don't know. He can get all the publicity he wants. But LeBron James legitimately makes every person on the floor around him better because he's not just out there getting his. He's out there getting rebounds. He's out there defending and locking down. And LeBron James is a really good passer and then has the sense to see when it's his opening to go get points himself. And that's what these guys do. And you could see that on certain teams, the ability that a guy has that when he's there, suddenly everybody else gets better. Maybe because all they have to do is really concentrate on their responsibility. They don't have to make up for the deficiency someplace else sometimes. That's the reason. There are just several reasons why certain players have the ability to make somebody else better. McSorley made Barkley better because he brought a skill set to the table that defenses had to respect. And not only that, he also put Barkley in a spot to make plays. I mean, that's, some guys have that ability to do that. And that's been, for Penn State over the last 2 weeks, okay, that's been the problem. Now, is that an excuse? No, he's just not there. But I'm explaining all the different areas that he helps out and makes a difference. Everybody loses guys, and what it did for Penn State was it took what was getting to be a decent little cushion that they had on the floor where they could make some errors but be okay, and now it's brought it back without him there to now having a very thin margin of error. Now, we'll find out, I think, more this week about where he is, but we'll see. We'll see. But that's, above all, you're talking about, well, they didn't score at the end. Well, they started to play a little bit of hero ball. And the bottom line is the way they lost the game on Saturday is you can't give up 16 offensive rebounds. You can't have a game where Lamar Stevens has 2 rebounds. You can't have a game where Tony Carr has 2 rebounds. You can't give up 16 offensive rebounds. You just can't do that. Northwestern hung in that game because they were able to get some second and third chances. And to their credit, they took care of it. Because Penn State plays the first 30 minutes. Penn State's at an 80-point pace through 30 minutes. Then the ball started to stick. Then the game got tight. Then a little bit of hero ball took over, which is not what Pat wanted. He wanted, the ball movement, which opened things up earlier in the game, was only out there in spurts in the last quarter of the game. All right. Take a break. Wrap things up in a moment. Brought to you by Purdy Insurance on Newsradio 1070 WKOK.
There are a lot of places to get insurance coverage, but only one place in the Susquehanna Valley ready to put 4 generations of experience to work for you. Hi, I'm Adam Purdy. At Purdy Insurance, we take the time to talk with you and find the right coverage for your needs. Everyone's situation is unique, so our approach is to customize coverage to best protect you. Whether it's home, auto, or business insurance solutions you need, call, email, or stop in to see how our commitment to personal service can help protect what matters to you.
Mike Vrabel is the new head coach of the Tennessee Titans. Former Ohio State player. Remember a couple of years ago when this was right before Bill O'Brien took the Houston Texans job. He had made the move that Ron Vanderlinden was not going to come back as his linebacking coach. He was going to hire Mike Vrabel here at Penn State, but then he took the Texans job, and he hired Mike Vrabel with the Texans. So Vrabel's talking today about style of offense. And he says Tennessee's going to embrace the collegiate-style spread system as a chunk of their offense because he feels it fits Marcus Mariota. Vrabel was also made interesting comments about the dynamic between college football and the NFL. He says the NFL has the greatest farm system in the world. We pay our farm system coaches $10 million to develop players. Nick Saban is our farm system. Urban Meyer is our farm system. Great. Vrabel's oldest son, Tyler's going to go to BC as a freshman this fall. But he says, the kind of players they're developing in the college level, he says those are the players that are playing high school. That's where the game is at. You have to be creative. You have to cause conflict. They're taking great athletes and putting them in similar positions to succeed. He said they want to do the same thing. Farm system. And again, it all comes back to about paying players. It's not the game you and I grew up with. Or at least it's not the attitude surrounding the game we grew up with. And I know how valuable a college education is. Believe me. Being a Penn State graduate has meant a tremendous amount to me in my life and my career. 4 of my 5 children are Penn State graduates. And I have one that's a Lock Haven University graduate. So all 5 of my children have college degrees. I also know how much money that we had to pay to get there. They've had to take out loans, and as I pointed out before, look, I had to get the state rate. Because I did, for whatever reason, circumstance, I didn't qualify for the Penn State rate. So I know how much it costs. So I know when I'm looking out, and when they're talking about football players and basketball players, and look, they bring in all this money. Well, they bring in money that goes other places. Well, Penn State has 2 really good lacrosse teams, men's and women's. Well, some of that money that's brought in goes there. Penn State has a tremendous women's soccer team, a tremendous women's volleyball team. Money goes there. Penn State has a really good men's volleyball team. Money goes there. Penn State is the best wrestling team in the country, but financially they can't sustain themselves. They don't come close to breaking even. So money goes there, so you can have the best wrestling program in the country. Women's basketball, money goes there.
Your station for news, weather, business, and CBS Sports Radio. News Radio 1070 WKOK Sunbury and on WKOK.com.